Welcome everyone. My name is Chelsea and I am a marketing program specialist here at UpKeep. We're so glad to have you all here at our virtual launch of our new book, Asset Operations. And we're just really excited to celebrate together. Asset Operations is the first book our CEO and founder, Ryan, has written, and it's centered around this operating principle of asset operations management. It's really a book that means a lot to him, a lot to our team, not just because of its message, but also because all of the proceeds from this book are going to be donated to fund educational opportunities for members of the maintenance community. So when you purchase our book, you are also helping up-level our entire industry. So yeah, before I head into our agenda and some housekeeping, I love to do kind of a quick icebreaker with our group right now. What is the first thing we should do with the proceeds to support our community? And I'm going to launch our poll right now, and let's see what y'all think.
Yeah, we want some good ideas of what we can use those proceeds for. Again, the main goal here is give back to the community. So let's see what everyone thinks.
All right, we're getting some votes for funding CMRP exams. It's actually winning by a landslide right now. We have purchasing books and training courses to give away. And if you have other options, feel free to write them in the chat.
All right, looks like funding CMRP exam seems to be the winner right now, huh?
No. Well, you know what? We definitely will be doing that. All of the proceeds, again, will be going to fund educational opportunities. And if funding CMRP exams is one of those ways we could do it, yeah, that's definitely something we will consider. But yeah, continuing to move on. Thanks for doing that icebreaker. I'm going to be moving over to our agenda. So I'll be covering some housekeeping items, and then I'll be introducing our speaker for today. And then we will then move forward to the book reading and leave some time at the end for a Q&A session. So to cover some housekeeping items, like I mentioned earlier, we'll be having a Q&A session at the end of our presentation. To ask a question that you might have, all you have to do is navigate to the right side of your screen where you will see a chat box. You want to click the tab that says question at the top, and in this box, you can submit any and all your questions. To increase participation, we actually are going to be doing a really small giveaway to make this as engaging as possible. So for every single question that is asked and answered live, we will pick an attendee at random and send them a free copy of our book. So for example, if we answer 10 questions, we will send out 10 copies of the book to 10 random attendees. So we're going to open it up to as much Q&A as we can. So feel free to continually ask your questions in the chat, and we'll get to as much as we can. The only thing we ask of our winners is that you share a picture of the book on socials and help us spread the word about asset operations. And lastly, I want to let you know that this entire event is being recorded. So if you aren't able to make it live, you will receive the recording and also the first part of the book for free via email. And with that, I am super excited to introduce our speaker for today. It is no surprise that it is Ryan Chan, our very own UpKeep CEO and founder, and now author of Asset Operations. A quick intro about Ryan. He is a chemical engineer from UC Berkeley. He was named one of Forbes 30 Under 30 for manufacturing in 2018. And it was also recently announced that he is a finalist for the Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Woo! So Ryan started UpKeep out of a passion and frustration just by the lack of mobility in today's maintenance management software. And now UpKeep is helping over 3,000 customers around the world and is a leader in mobile-first maintenance management software. Welcome, Ryan. We're so happy to have you here today.
All right. Thank you, Chelsea. And thank you, everyone, for joining me and us live, and everyone watching the recording. Thank you so much for supporting us, the community, and this big book launch. I just really appreciate it. Wanted to start with that. Before I get into like the thick of things about how the book was written, I wanted to kind of like rewind us a little bit about like how and why we decided to create a new category of asset operations and really get away from the what everyone else has been doing for a very long time. So I want to share a little bit of a personal story of UpKeep and the very early days of building the asset operations category. So back in 2021, when we really decided to create this brand new category of asset operations, we basically said, we want to do things a little bit different. And so we created this category with the help of our UpKeep team, the analysts, and the entire community itself. And, I'm super excited that, as of earlier this week, we actually launched our first book, which is so amazing. And, it's something that I've been thinking about for the last 6 to 8 years. But we finally put it down into paper over the last, essentially 6 to 8 months. But I want to say that creating this brand new category is difficult, and it has held a ton of challenges. And I want to also say that it's been especially hard to create something new in an industry that, I'm sure all of us has felt. This industry oftentimes loves keeping people, processes, and systems the way they are, even though the world around us is changing so much. And just to bring us back into the history of a CMMS, the first versions of a CMMS actually started about 60 years ago. I hope this sheds some light into, again, why we decided to build this category. And over the last 60 years, these systems, I believe, have largely remained the same. I mean, we're still using this term computerized as the category acronym for 60 years later. And so where did this vision, this idea of asset operations category come from? Well, we saw this as an opportunity to redefine the old way that people used to be doing things and create this brand new category and definition of what we call asset operations. And we believe that this is the future. But not only do we believe that this is the future, but we also realize and recognize that it is a little bit different. And some people may also say that it's a little bit weird. I mentioned I was going to share a little bit more about my personal journey. I'm okay being a little bit weird. Many things that I've done in my life have never exactly been normal. Quitting my day job, starting my own business, living in my mom's garage, building UpKeep. For those of you that have seen me at trade shows, you probably know that I show up to trade shows in this bright red UpKeep suit. And all of these moments and experiences have really led me to these incredible opportunities that put me on this path that in many ways was much, much less traveled by others. And one of those paths is actually creating this category of asset operations and designing a new normal for our industry, because I believe it's what we need to successfully move into this future. It may seem daunting, it may seem a little bit weird, but when we have this courage and choose to go against the grain, these choices lead us to discover something truly extraordinary. And that's what we're here today to do. I've learned this firsthand through building UpKeep, and again through writing this book. And with all of that being said, and in the spirit of extraordinariness and weirdness today, and the rest of this week, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. We're going to be doing, prizes, giveaways. We're taking all of our proceeds from the book and giving it away back to our community. We're going to be doing challenges on social media and really thinking outside of the box to create a fun, different experience for our community, our customers, and all of you here today. That's what UpKeep has always been about. That's what we are here to do today. And that's what has led us to this very moment of redefining the old way that people used to do things and defining a new way and saying, things don't have to be that way. We can do things differently, and we can choose to be a little bit weird and different. All right, let's get into our presentation. I appreciate everyone again joining us. And I appreciate everyone listening to how this entire category got started here at UpKeep. This is supposed to be the virtual book reading and the book launch of our asset operations book. And I want to address the question for everyone here, probably asking that question, what is this book all about? Our goal is really use this asset operations book to share AOM as the operating principle for any asset intensive organization on how to run their maintenance, reliability, and operations team. What we're trying to accomplish here is create the standard of how maintenance reliability operations team at any organization that has and owns assets on how to run and manage their equipment at their plant. And what we realized was that there are these big silos. We want to break them down and not only provide a framework on why asset operations is important, but how to also implement it at your company. And so if you've gotten the book, if you're interested in reading the book, it's really broken up into these 3 parts: why it's important, what the 8 pillars are, and then ultimately how to bring this to life. The book is not just this theoretical view of what the future could and should look like, but really practical ways that we can use this in our day-to-day. The center of our book is really the center of our book is based upon these 8 pillars that we wanted to make sure every single company, maintenance reliability department implements at their plant. And I'll read through these 8 pillars real quick. The first one is maintenance reliability operations operate together and align on achieving a common goal. What we've seen right now and at so many companies is that these departments are fragmented. But we want to make sure that the core pillar of asset operations is that these 3 departments are unified on this shared common goal. The second pillar of asset operations is that data must flow into a single repository. Once we achieve this common goal, we have to have the data that supports this common goal. And right now, what we saw was that maintenance reliability operations are working in different data silos, and we need to break those down and store it in a single repository. The third pillar of asset operations is measure teams based on why they do something rather than what they do. What we see so often is that maintenance teams, reliability teams, operations teams are measured based off of what they do, not why they do it. How many hours you work, not the impact that you have to the business. And we want to flip that around. We think a core issue there is it's happening because of the first 2. Maintenance is right now oftentimes measured on how many work orders did you complete, how many hours did you work, how many PMs did you check off? Not really looking at the core reason of why we run PMs and how that impacts, uptime at our plant, reducing downtime, increasing production levels, and ultimately profit. Measure teams based on why they do, not what they do. The fourth pillar of asset operations, collect the right data, display the best insights, provide actionable feedback through a centralized command center. And once we have the right data, we have shared common goals. Ultimately, what we want to do is create this virtuous cycle of collect data, display insights, take action, repeat, rinse and repeat. Our vision of asset operations is not linear, it's circular. What we realize is how important it is for companies to constantly think about improving their processes. The 5th pillar of asset operations is exactly what I just mentioned, this continuous improvement as an abundant life cycle and not just a point in time. Continuous improvement and process improvement is not just linear, it's this rinse and repeat cycle that continues to happen over and over and over again. The 6th pillar of asset operations, everything measured can be improved. Measure what you want to improve. The 7th pillar of asset operations is data accessible from wherever you are. It's great to have a single repository, but if you can't access it, that's just as difficult. And the last pillar of asset operations, probably one that I care most about, is if we do what we say we're going to do, maintenance, reliability, and operations teams can be viewed as revenue drivers and not cost centers. These are the 8 pillars of asset operations. And if you're interested, if you've already read it, I encourage you to get a book and keep it at your plant, keep it in front of your desk, share it with your team. These are principles that I know for a fact would drive better alignment for maintenance reliability on operations teams. And we've seen it in practice already. All right, so let's get into how the book was written. I'll say that the book really started between a partnership between members of our UpKeep team and myself. We took everything that our internal teams have been ruminating on, ideas that I had been thinking about literally 8 years ago, and we started pitching these ideas to analysts, talking to a bunch of different experts. We interviewed, some of the biggest names in reliability, from Ramesh Gulati, George Williams, Bob Latino, Rob Kalvarewski, Ricky Smith, George Parada. We interviewed a bunch of subject matter experts. And then not only did we do that, we also went deep into our customer base to find real stories of challenges. We went outside of our customers, across the broad industry. We reached out to you, our community, and really tried to figure out what are these pillars that help address some of the biggest challenges in maintenance reliability operations today. And what we found was a lot of these original kernels of ideas that I had, almost 10 years ago, are still going on today. And we realized that change needed to happen. And if there's anyone that was going to raise their hand and say, I'm going to be a little bit weird, and if I'm not seeing the change that I wanted over the last, 8 to 10 years, then I'm going to do it, and we're going to do it. So we took this draft and spent countless hours writing the first draft. After that, we wound up reaching out to, again, our community, sending out drafts to probably we've gotten roughly about 50 different experts and community members to review our book, submit their feedback, and help us brainstorm on how we can improve it. And that's ultimately what led us to getting to where we are today. So thank you to everyone that has helped us in writing this book. This is not just, I know it says written by Ryan on the front cover. This is not just written by Ryan on the front cover. This is written really by our entire community, people in our space, experts. It's written from the perspective and eyes from our customers. And it's something that I'm extremely proud of. All right, so with that, I want to read a very, very, very short excerpt from the book before we head into our Q&A session. And this excerpt is actually from our preface. In this book, I invite you to get ahead of the technology curve, play an active role in business today and the years to come. In each section, you're going to find real, tangible, step-by-step instructions on how to better your business using the tools and resources available to you today. We'll then discuss actions that you can take to stay ahead of the technological transformations that will rock our industry through automation and digitization of information. And some of these ideas are going to be easily implemented at your business, but others may take some time. As we all know, a hero's journey begins with a single step. This was just a very small snippet of our book, but I really do hope that this serves as an invitation for everyone to come in with an open mind when reading my book. If you choose to purchase it, I really would incredibly appreciate that. So again, I want to say thank you again to all of our customers, our community, for making this book happen, for helping me, our entire team, in building this community, embracing being a little bit weird as we started it from the very, very top, and changing the way that people used to do things. All right, with that, I'm going to pass the mic back to Chelsea to kick us off with some questions.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan, for that presentation and just sharing kind of your thoughts and your passion about this book. Can we get some clap emojis in the chat? Yeah, just to celebrate this launch. But yeah, we have around 20 more minutes to kind of answer as many questions as we can. So let's get started. We actually have quite a few questions here already. Please continue to send in your questions in the chat, and we would try to get through as much as we can because we want to send out as many books as possible to all of our attendees. So continue to just get that chat buzzing. But to kick us off, Ryan, why and how was asset operations created? We kind of got a few questions here saying, why this topic? Why did you want to write about it? So yeah, can you answer that question for us first?
Really, the why it was created, and it really goes back to what we kind of like started this entire presentation with. I had been thinking, like, why are these data silos happening? Why is like maintenance fighting with reliability, which is fighting with operations? Why is there this back and forth? Shouldn't we all be focused on the same common goal within our department, within production? Shouldn't we all be focused on reducing downtime, improving reliability of our equipment? And what I realized was that no one else was doing it. We settled for status quo. So why write the book? It was really just to say, I see a problem and no one else is addressing that problem. So let's raise our hands and say, let's do this. If there's anyone that can change the industry, I'm going to bet on ourselves and the community that has supported us. And we said, we didn't want this just to be a theory, a book about theory of what we could potentially do if maintenance, reliability, operations was all unified, had a single data repository, use data as a source of truth to help move us from a cost center to a revenue driver. I really wanted tangible things that our customers could actually take from our customers and real world examples and apply it to their business. And that's ultimately why we wrote this book. Started with this idea, realized no one else was doing it, said we're going to be the ones to raise our hands, to be a little bit weird, make sure that we apply practical knowledge that everyone can use.
Awesome. Thanks for answering that. Another question that we got was, how does asset operations really compare to other books of the same genre? Is the book different in any way from the books typically written for maintenance and reliability professionals? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Chelsea. And whoever actually asked that question, thank you. When we were looking at books about our industry, there's kind of like two very distinct types of genres of book. One was very aspirational, very visionary, very much about like, what's going to happen, digital transformation over the next 100 years. And then the other books were very, very practical and tactical. It's about like case studies of businesses and plants today, right now. And what we said was, with our book, we wanted to marry and match the big vision and the steps of how to get there. And I would say that's the biggest difference about our book. It's not just big picture, big vision, what's going to happen over the next 100 years, but also hopefully like these micro steps that enable every single business to get one step closer and not just look at this big picture in the sky, say, hey, maybe one day we're going to get there.
Awesome. And another question that we have here is, in the book, there are sections called State of the Industry written by the subject matter experts that you mentioned before, like Ricky Smith, Rob Kalvarowski, Ramesh Gulati. Can you explain more what these sections are about and why you included them in the book in the first place?
Exactly. I mean, it's such a great question. Again, whoever asked that question, it was exactly to that previous point. We didn't want it to just be this high up in the sky, like visionary. This is what's going to happen over the next, 10, 15, 100 years. We wanted to make sure that we validated everything that we were envisioning with subject matter experts. And we also realized that we have, as much as I want to say we have 3,000, 4,000 customers using our product every single day, we talk to people in the industry. We also know that our scope is very limited too. There are 10 million maintenance reliability engineers, hands-on workers in the US and, 100 million plus, maintenance workers in the world. We still see a very, very small view of that. And so we wanted to bring in industry experts to showcase real world examples and take a lens of asset operations through their own experiences and not just through the UpKeep and the Ryan experience.
Awesome. And we're getting a lot of questions in the chat about the name of the book, Asset Operations. Why do we decide to go with asset ops versus asset management versus asset operations management? Why asset operations? Was that intentional at all?
It was extremely intentional. So, Ahmed, thank you for asking that question. I actually have been asked that question many times. It was a very, very intentional thing. Generally, when people say asset management, they think of maintenance reliability. And what I said was, we need to break down these silos between maintenance, reliability, operations. It was very intentional to make sure that we included operations to make sure that they are included in this book so that they know that they are part of this team. It was very, very, very intentional to call it asset operations and not just asset management.
Awesome. And, we also have a question in the chat asking, how did you come up with the 8 pillars of asset operations management?
Oh yeah. I think that was, who asked that question actually? That was Aaron. So great question, Aaron. How do we come up with the 8 pillars? At the end of the day, it didn't have to be 8. What we said was, and really where it came from was just talking to all of these subject matter experts and finding common themes, finding common problems, and finding common solutions. Whether it was 6 or 8 or 10 or 100 pillars, didn't really matter to me. What I wanted to do was just make sure that we had these common themes that a lot of businesses could relate to, with common, what I felt like, solutions that asset operations could be applied to. So really, it came from talking to, you all, our community, customers, people out in the field, my personal experiences. Great question, Aaron.
Awesome. And, you've been saying this a lot throughout our entire session, that asset operations is new, it's different, it's weird. And so I'm really curious, this is a bit of a spicier question. Do you expect there to be any pushback on the asset operations approach from professionals in this industry? What beliefs do you think this book is really challenging?
Yeah. I appreciate the spicy question there, Chelsea. I think that there are going to be many pushbacks. I think the most common one is like, how did we get here, and why did we get to this point? And I believe that we got to this point of data silos because there's this belief that operating in silos removes distractions and helps experts or people with expertise in a single thing, maintenance, people with a certain specialty of reliability, to operate in this no distractions space. And I think that there is this general belief that, operating in silos essentially gives them this hyper focus. And I think it kind of goes back to essentially like the assembly line thinking. And what we're kind of saying is like, kind of break down these barriers and flatten it out a little bit and have maintenance, reliability, operations all focus on the same goal. I feel very strongly that these data silos are not going to work. They used to work, and I think they worked in the past because people didn't have access to this data. They didn't have access to the technology, the cloud. They didn't have access to mobile devices. And it was only over the past essentially like 10 years that the cloud has become much more prevalent, that has enabled, companies to be able to aggregate data, run analytics. These are very new things. I think there could be some challenges to this, and say that no, maintenance could and should operate independently with different sets of goals than an operations team or than a reliability team. I think that could be that argument. I don't buy it, obviously, but we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to whoever asked that question. Next up, it's you've been thinking about this for 6 to 8 years. You've been doing a ton of research to write this book, including working with like the internal team, analysts, even professionals in this industry. But I love to hear kind of like more personally, like where did you get your data and ideas from? Any story or experiences specifically?
Yeah. I mean, well, again, thank you for that question, Chelsea. A little bit about my background for those of you that don't know. I was a chemical engineer from Berkeley, and my first job was actually working in a manufacturing plant at Tricep. So where do all these, ideas and data points come from? It really came from my own personal experience. I was a process engineer at a manufacturing plant where we manufactured reverse osmosis membranes for brackish water desalination, a little bit of wastewater. And my role there was, how do we make our process, our manufacturing process, better, faster, smoother, run more reliably, and essentially reduce downtime, improve production, and ultimately improve product and profit for the entire business. I was thinking about that every single day. And ultimately, that was kind of the inspiration behind UpKeep. How do we utilize technology to improve our manufacturing process? And ultimately, that's how this entire book came about. It was taking that mindset of just these micro adjustments along the entire manufacturing line and utilizing technology to help us, make our manufacturing line better, smoother, faster, run more reliably, reduce downtime, improve production, improve profit for the entire business.
Awesome. Thanks for that response, Ryan. We have a few more minutes, so continue to ask your questions in the chat. We still have quite a few to go through, so let's get through them. Another
How many
question.
questions are we at? How many books are we giving away, Chelsea?
I think we're giving around like 6 or 7, and let's try to give like 15 away. Let's
Oh,
get
shoot.
more
All right,
questions.
let's go.
For our next question, to our live attendees and those watching on demand, why should they read your book? What value will it provide them?
Again, I think it's all about taking this vision and also practical steps of how we get there. The future is coming. The world is changing so much. This idea of digital transformation is happening. I think if you settle for status quo and the world is changing around you, you're essentially falling behind. I read this really great quote literally this morning. It said, change is constant, but growth is optional. So change is inevitable. The world is changing around us, and that is a fact, and it is inevitable. Growth and our growth is optional. Do we use that as an opportunity? Do we use change as an opportunity to continue learning or not? That is optional. Ultimately, I would highly encourage people to, take this book, read this book, and apply some of these, tactics. I know that it can be helpful to your business. And kind of embrace this change. And I guarantee you, if and when we do, we will rise up to that challenge of growth, personally, professionally, and for the entire business.
Love that. Another question that we got is, how do you think this book is going to revolutionize this industry? What kind of impact do you think this book is going to make 5 years down the line?
I have this big dream and big goal. I really hope that maintenance, reliability, the perception of these fields and workers in this field gets completely changed. My hope is that, maintenance, reliability, operations go from cost centers to revenue drivers. I hope that we can change the perception of, this entire industry, because right now I think, oftentimes, unfortunately, maintenance is viewed at the bottom of the totem pole. I think oftentimes maintenance is viewed as, these fixers when something breaks, and not critical to an entire business. And I think that's so wrong. So over the next 5-10 years, if and when we are successful, we'll have changed the perception of what maintenance reliability means to a company. And my hope is that we can again change maintenance reliability from a cost center into a revenue driver. My hope is that we can create a brand new department within an organization that is data focused, value focused, that's focused on the why, not the what. And we call that department the asset operations department. That's hyper focused on connecting every single thing that we do with the value that it brings to business. Very practically, connect how many PMs you complete and how that impacts the longevity of an asset, reliability of an asset. That's my hope. That's my goal.
Awesome. We've been getting quite a few questions about, is there more to explore and uncover about asset operations beyond what's already been written in the first book? Do you plan on writing another book on asset operations or another book on a different topic? What's your future as an author, Ryan?
Well, I can tell you, we're kind of already talking about it internally, but that's a great question. Internally, what we're talking about is really like, what does part 2 look like for the asset operations book? And we've got a bunch of ideas. The thing that I'm most excited about is, after releasing this book this week, we want to get it into the hands of people, have them apply this knowledge to their business, and start taking these as case studies of the impact that it could have for a business when you break down these silos, utilize technology to help us better understand the why we do what we do, and turn that into kind of like the second part of our book, taking real world examples in displaying and showcasing the challenges that people went through, but also the big success that companies can have once they adopt this change.
Awesome. We have a couple more minutes. Let's get through maybe 2 more questions.
All right, 2 more books.
2 more books to give away. Another question that we got is, for asset operations, how can we get upper management on board to invest in this?
That's a good question. That's core and central to the entire book. And I think that the root of how you get them bought in is, again, you go back to the data. I think right now the reason why there's this disconnect between, what we do and why we do it is because we don't have the full life cycle of an asset. We don't really connect what we do to why we do it and the impact that it has. Right now, we're only looking at maintenance as a line item cost. Right now, we only look at, reliability and uptime metrics as a percent of your, how much you spend as a percentage of your replacement asset value. We're not really looking at the value of what each of these departments bring to the business and how it ultimately impacts bottom line for the company. So how do you get that buy-in? It starts with data. It starts with being able to connect why we do what we do with what we are doing on a daily basis. That is the core fundamental principle of asset operations. You start with data. Because, we know that for any change to take place within an organization, you have to get upper management buy-in. And what do they respond to? Oftentimes, 100% of the times, they respond to dollars and cents. That's the core pillar of asset operations. Is getting to a place where companies can actually display that.
Yeah, definitely. All right. One last question for you, Ryan. Just to kind of wrap this all up nicely, what's the main takeaway you want people to learn after reading this book?
Oh my gosh, I only get one takeaway from the book.
Only one.
The one takeaway, again, is this idea that maintenance operations reliability should work in the symbiotic relationship, and that it is possible. And it was much more difficult 10 years ago than it is today. And that if we embrace this change, we can grow as a company and do some extraordinary things. I don't think you have to be a data scientist in order to bridge this gap. I think a lot of it is actually people and process change. And I think we're all capable of that.
Awesome. Well, I have to definitely go back in this recording and see how many questions we answered, but definitely I think we are giving away a ton of books. So thank you everyone for just asking your questions. I hope we got through a lot of them. And congrats to some of the winners that we'll announce. You'll receive an email if you want a book. But yeah, we have reached the end of our time. Thank you everyone again for submitting those questions and for joining us today to celebrate the launch of Asset Operations. Just a reminder, all registrants will receive the first 3 chapters of the book after the event is over via email, and we will contact all giveaway winners via email as well. Just on a more personal note, we just cannot express how excited we all are for the release of this book. And if you're interested in grabbing a copy, you can find the book on Amazon. I'll put the link in the chat. And yeah, thank you all so much again for being a part of this very, very special moment for us. This is absolutely huge. And Ryan, do you have any last words that you want to share with our attendees and also those watching later on demand?
Again, just a big thank you to our entire community that has supported me and us, the entire vision behind UpKeep, and ultimately this book, Asset Operations. I want to say thank you a million times over and over again to everyone that has joined us live, that's watching the recording later. We would not be here without you. So I really appreciate it. If you have any thoughts, comments, feedback about the book, how you're using it in practice, even challenges that you ran into trying to apply this at your business, at your company, I would love to know. So please also feel free to reach out. I'm very, very public with my email. I read every single one of them. I might not respond to every single email that I get, but I promise you I read every single email that I get. If you send me an email at ryan@upkeep.com, I will see it. And I would love to hear your feedback, your experience with asset operations, even whether or not you resonated with the book. I would love to hear that. So again, thank you, Chelsea. Thank you to the entire UpKeep team. Thank you to our entire UpKeep community.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, again. Thank you, Ryan, for joining us. I'm super excited. We can't believe the book is out. Go get your hands on one. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one as we celebrate more throughout the week. Awesome.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you at the next one.